Dropping down from the Pennine Hills, the town of Huddersfield is at the confluence of the rivers Colne and Home, dominated by Castle Hill. The town grew in importance only when the Industrial Revolution brought the woolen industry down from the hillsides to the valley bottoms. Castle Hill and its tower is the first thing to strike anyone approaching Huddersfield. This hill has a long history, from the Iron Age fort to a Norman castle, and much more recently this tower that celebrated Queen Victoria's Jubilee. On the western slopes of Castle Hill is the village of Almondbury. In 1475, this village paid more tax levied on cloth than Leeds or Bradford. Now just one of the suburbs of Huddersfield, Almondbury has a long and interesting history. William Ramsden married the daughter of a local landowner, John Wood of Longley, in 1531. He acquired land in the Huddersfield and Almondbury areas and purchased Longley Hall. In 1599, William Ramsden bought the Manor of Huddersfield from Queen Elizabeth I for £965 and 9 Over the years, this family was to play an important role in the development of the town. In 1920, the Huddersfield Corporation purchased the Ramsden estate from the family for £1,300,000, thus giving Huddersfield's unusual title, the town that bought itself. In 1974, in common with many other areas, Huddersfield County Borough Council became part of a larger authority, Kirklees Metropolitan Council. Huddersfield is well known for the production of fine woolen and worsted cloth. The sheep on the surrounding hills and Pennine moors, the abundance of clean, soft water in the valley bottoms, and a skilled workforce helped the trade to develop. But it was the Industrial Revolution that brought water power to drive the looms, and the development of the canal system to take the finished goods to the market, and later the building of road and rail links to the markets of the world. At first, cloth was woven in the small hillside cottages. The Colne Valley Museum brings to life the conditions of this time.
These cottages were actually built in 1845, and it was getting a little bit late for hand weaving in cottages by this time. But of course things didn't stop immediately that the mills were built. The mills were starting to come into the valley by the canal, by the river, and it took quite a long time for all this to die out. They might even have had a very small spinning jenny in the cottage here. They would have had the looms here, and they would have worked well on into almost the 20th century, up to 1890 or something like that. They would have gone down from the bedroom downstairs, down into the bottom kitchen, out of the door, and walked all the way up the cobbled hill here, round the end of the buildings and back along the top road here, which is only 1 story high here, and in at these doors. That's how they kept all the dirt of the work up here out of the houses. The windows in these cottages are a trademark of a weaver's cottage. They go from one end of the room to the other, from one wall to the other, letting as much light as possible in through them. You would not have had your electric lights or anything like that. You would have had to work perhaps from a candle or something, an oil lamp, an old oil lamp or something hanging over your loom if it got too dark to see. But obviously the most important work was done as soon as the light started in the morning. As soon as the sun rose, you were up and getting ready and getting working, and when it finished, when it set at night, you finished. So in summer you worked long hard hours. in winter you didn't work as long because you didn't have as much light. Yeah, the mills came in and offered good work to the people. They could earn more money than they could earn here in the homes, and obviously they went down to work in the mills.
At first, only some aspects of woolen production took place in the mills, such as fulling, and the weaving was still done within the home or at small clothiers. Between the early years of the 19th century and the 1880s, most of the large mill complexes were built, providing a wide range of services, with spinning and dyeing as specialities. Some mills provided a room and power for smaller concerns, while others took in the raw wool and sent out the completed cloth. Many of the mills that worked at the beginning of the 20th century have not survived the periodic periods of depression and competition from other countries. One important firm that won fame for the Huddersfield cloth was John Crowther's of Milnsbridge. In 1931, John Crowther's set a world record for suit making in response to a challenge thrown down to industry by land speed record holder Sir Malcolm Campbell. On the 24th of June, a team of 94 highly skilled workers turned raw wool into a finished suit in just 2 hours, 9 minutes and 20 seconds. Unfortunately, Crowther's mill complex at Milnsbridge is no longer there. But Huddersfield's tradition as a producer of fine woolen cloth is still upheld by some older firms, as well as new companies such as C&A Antioch & Sons Limited in their new mill on Leeds Road. The Industrial Revolution and the social changes it caused had a great impact in the area. Conditions in the new mills and the changes in work practices as new technology took hold resulted in the activities of the Luddites in the area. The local shearers, men who wielded huge shears to remove the nap of the wool on a piece of cloth, were highly paid specialists. The introduction of the shearing frame threatened their jobs, and they rebelled by destroying the machines using a sledgehammer known as Enoch. Enoch made them, Enoch shall break them. The hammer had been made locally by a man called Enoch. Local Luddites met at the Dun Steeple and then attacked Rawfolds Mill in Liversedge and murdered Sir William Horsfall, a local mill owner on his way home from Huddersfield Market to Ottewell's Mill, Marsden, in April 1812. Another aspect of life in the mills was the conditions and hours worked by all, including young children. Richard Ostler, the Fixby estate manager, was one of those who fought for the 10 hours bill, to restrict daily working hours to 10. The development of the thriving chemical industry has close links with the woolen trade. The production of dyes began when Reed Holiday distilled ammonia to scour the cloth in the 1830s. He then sold natural dyes before experimenting with the distillation of coal tar. Reed Holiday was taken over by British Dyes to later become ICI and more recently Zenica. The family name is still remembered in what is now Holiday Chemical Holdings, started by Lionel Holiday in 1915. During the First World War, sulfuric and pitric acid were produced for explosives. After the war, ICI was at the forefront of the development and production of brine nylon, terylene and crimpline. There have been many complaints about the pollution caused by the ICI and other chemical works from the earliest days, but modern controls mean that there are fewer pollution incidents today. Originally developed to produce machinery for the mills, the engineering industry expanded to include such nationally known names as Hopkinson's Valves, Sellers, David Brown Gears and David Brown Tractors, and Brooke Motors. All these companies played their part in both world wars. Hopkinson's valves were used in the mini-submarines that helped pave the way for the Allied invasion of Europe. Hopkinson's was one of the first in the country to use computer-aided design. Gears from David Brown's are used all over the world, on land, sea and in the air, for a wide range of engineering projects, from power stations and sewage works to Chieftain tanks and Rolls-Royce engines. David Brown's tractors helped to change the face of agriculture in the 20th century. David Brown, the grandson of the founder of the firm, had been involved in Carrier Motors, a local lorry building firm, and bought Aston Martin for £20,000 in 1947. There are many other industries that have played an important part in the development of the locality. Bentley and Shaw's brewery are no longer there, having been taken over by larger firms, but set the standard by which all brews were gauged, as they used the Yorkshire stone square system of fermentation. Several organ builders still work in Huddersfield. Lawrence Batley opened the first cash and carry in 1958, going on to become a millionaire. Standard Fireworks lit the skies on bonfire night for many years before being taken over in recent years. Ben Shaw's have produced non-alcoholic drinks with a wide range of bottled and canned drinks now being sold worldwide. Coal for use in the furnaces of local mills was mined in the surrounding villages from the Yorkshire coal seams. Originally, all goods were to be carried on the backs of the pack horses as they made their way over the hilltop trails. The introduction of turnpike roads helped, but it was the coming of the canal and railways that revolutionized trade and travel. Sir John Ramsden was the first to realize the importance of canals, and he built the canal that bears his name in the 1780s. In 1812, the Huddersfield Narrow Canal was opened, joining Huddersfield to the markets of Yorkshire and Lancashire and the wider world. This canal included the building of the world's longest and highest canal tunnel. Taken over by the railway companies, the canals fell into disuse and were closed in the 1950s. The hard work of the Canal Society has led to both being used for tourist traffic and new locks and sections being reopened, including work currently being undertaken. The Stanage Tunnel is to be reopened in the near future. Railway lines followed the logical routes up the valleys alongside the canal and made use of the canal tunnel to carry away the spoil as they built their own longest Stanage Tunnel through the Pennines. Huddersfield Station, built between 1846 and 1850, is considered to be one of the finest station facades in the country. The coming of the car and Dr. Beeching saw the closure of many local railway lines. However, several stations have been reopened on the mainline routes, and a new line is being built between Huddersfield, Halifax and Bradford. Trains are good for long journeys, but people need to travel from home to their work, and before cars became affordable, they had to walk or use public transport. The Huddersfield Corporation's first tramcar ran between Fartown and Lockwood in 1883. Soon afterward, a comprehensive service ran covering most areas of the town, setting the basic routes still used by the bus services today. In 1893, Huddersfield became the first town in Britain to carry letterboxes on the trams. This service was very popular, but was discontinued at the request of the post office at the outbreak of the Second World War. Electric trams took over between 1900 and 1940 to be replaced by the much-missed trolley buses. These electric buses coped well with the steep hillsides of the Huddersfield area. They were quiet and pollution-free. However, the rise in the price of fuel and their aging condition resulted in the motor buses taking over in 1968. Privatisation has led to a wide range of bus companies serving the town, and the old Huddersfield Corporation colours are no longer seen. The motor car has been king since the middle of the 20th century. Local manufacturers built cars in the town, such as the LSD car on show in Tolson Museum from 1921. The building of the M62 was yet another heroic effort to cross the Pennines. How many lives and how much equipment has been lost over the years to create the routes that we take for granted today, we may never know. Now on the main route over the Pennines, Huddersfield has good links both east and west, north and south to all parts of the country and the world beyond. Today, we take it for granted that children start school at 3 in the local nursery and continue, should they wish, to complete university in their early 20s. Education is now seen as being for life, as can be seen in the success of the University of the Third Age in Huddersfield, the largest in the country. However, this was not always so. Almondbury Grammar School was founded for the sons of wealthy families and granted a charter in 1601. Poor children, if they were lucky, attended the local dames' school. It was the Industrial Revolution that helped change this way of life. There was a need for educated people to work in the mills and factories. People wanted to improve themselves and were prepared to fight for their rights. Local churches started Sunday schools to teach the poor to read and write. Local board and national schools were founded to teach the basics, but before 1871, children had to pay a fee for such education. Between 1838 and 1893, secondary education for all was not yet available. There was only the Almondbury Grammar School and Huddersfield College, which were supplemented later by the Mechanic Institute and later the Technical College. In 1893, the Huddersfield College was reopened by the council as a grammar school for boys. It's now the Huddersfield New College, one of the town's 2 sixth-form colleges. A grammar school for girls was opened at Greenhead in 1909, which was to become one of the largest, and is now recognised as being amongst the best sixth-form colleges in the country. The Mechanics Institution was the foundation of the Technical College, which in turn became a Polytechnic College and is now the University of Huddersfield. The Huddersfield General Dispensary was opened in Packhorse Yard in 1815, which was the first attempt to bring proper medical care to all the citizens of the town. There were local doctors, but many people would make use of the services of bone setters, such as Merrydale Dick, Richard Horsfall. The foundation stone of the Huddersfield Infirmary was laid in 1829, and it was extended in 1933. A site at Lindley, Greenley Estate, was purchased in 1925, and eventually, in 1969, the new Huddersfield Royal Infirmary was opened there by Princess Margaret. In 2000, Huddersfield people are fighting changes that would take the maternity and certain other services to a new hospital being built in Halifax. The centre of Huddersfield is graced by a wide range of Victorian buildings that give it so much of its character. Frederick Engels described it as the handsomest by far of all factory towns in Yorkshire and Lancashire. The influence of the Ramsden family and their various agents is seen in the design of the town centre. The agents, Alexander Haythorne, George Locke, and the Ramsden's cashier, Isaac Horden, were aided by the skills of architects and local builders such as William Henry Crossland, Joseph Kay, John Oates, J.P. Pritchett, Sir William Tite and William Wallen. Their names are remembered in the buildings that they created. The railway station, J.P. Pritchett, 1846 to 50. Lion Building. George Hotel, William Wallen. Britannia Buildings, Crossland, 1856 to 59. Byram Arcade, W.H. Crossland. Huddersfield Infirmary, designed by John Oates, built by Joseph Kay. Ramsden Estate Building, W.H. Crossland, 1871 to 72. Kirkgate Buildings, Crossland, 1880 to 83. Prudential Building, Alfred Waterhouse, 1897 to 98. Two buildings suffered in the reconstruction after the Second World War. The old Huddersfield Market Hall, pulled down in 1970, and the much-missed Huddersfield Banking Company, later the Midland Bank, 1881, was replaced in 1971. Between 1801 and 1841, the population of Huddersfield grew from around 7,000 to over 25,000. Naturally, they needed houses, and there was a housing boom. Housing estates were built by local landowners such as the Ramsdens and the Thornhills in areas such as Fartown and Mould Green. Some people lived in the yards. These were mainly at the bottom of town in the lower King Street area and what's now Southgate. A few yards remain and are to be redeveloped within the Kingsgate development that's under construction in 2000. The yards at the top of town were demolished to make way for the Civic Centre. The Packhorse Yard, home of the Huddersfield Dispensary, was pulled down to create the Packhorse Centre. Market Avenue, originally called Greenwood's Yard, was redeveloped in the 1990s, although it retains its name. As the wealth of the town grew, new houses were needed, the Georgian elegance of Queen Street and Spring Street, the Victorian houses on New North Road and Trinity Street. The Edgerton area is graced by many fine houses built for the wealthy local mill owners. The Oldgate tenements were built in 1915 to replace the first model lodging house. Threatened with demolition in the 1970s, these tenements were upgraded and are still in use. Between the wars, huge council estates were built in a number of areas, such as Deaton in Lower Houses. And post-war, new estates have been developed, including the Fernside area of Almondbury. The cottage homes at Waterloo were built to house elderly people as a celebration of the corporation's Diamond Jubilee in 1930. In 1934, a new three-bedroom house on Beedon Avenue, Waterloo, was available for the grand sum of £425. There are not many high-rise flats in the Huddersfield area. The 3 blocks on Southgate and one above C&A's on New Street and a few blocks out in the suburbs are the only ones of note. Although there are many new houses today, on the whole they fit into Huddersfield without spoiling its appearance. Farnley Hay won prizes for its architectural design in 1957, as has more recently the Roundhouse at Hall Bower, just below Castle Hill. The first recorded fairs were held in Almondbury, and a charter was granted in the 13th century. Huddersfield's market is known to have been in existence in 1584, but the market charter was granted to Sir John Ramsden in 1617. These markets took place around the Market Cross and in the surrounding streets. Although local produce was sold, many local weavers sold their wares, even hanging the cloth on the walls and gravestones in the parish churchyard. In 1766, Sir John Ramsden built the Cloth Hall to help develop trade. This hall was pulled down in the 1930s to make way for the Ritz Cinema. However, the clock tower was saved and re-erected in Ravensknoll Park. The traditional markets are still held in Huddersfield on Mondays and Thursdays, with second-hand markets on Tuesdays and Saturdays. Originally held on other sites, these markets were moved into the refurbished wholesale market in the 1980s. A market hall was opened in King Street in 1880, with its spectacular staircase from the top to lower floor down either side, with brass knobs to prevent the children from sliding down. This hall was pulled down in 1970 to make way for the developments that include Boots. A new market hall was opened on the piazza opposite the library and town hall. In spring 2000, there are no departmental stores in the town. In the past, there were Henry's, Haywood's, Kay's and Rushworth's, as well as a large cooperative store. Henry's and Haywood's were both destroyed by fire. Rushworth's was opened in 1875 as the Huddersfield Bazaar, but by 1900 was on a prime site at the corner of Westgate and John William Street. Over the years, many courting couples have met at Rushworth's Corner. By 1925, it boasted 25 different departments. The company was sold in 1966, and the corner site is now occupied by Frankie and Benny's New York Italian restaurant. Huddersfield is a hive of activity. There are so many things to do if you're prepared to go out and take part. Many societies and activities can trace their origins in the social changes of the 19th century. The Huddersfield Glee and Madrigal Society, now the Huddersfield Singers, was founded in 1827. The Huddersfield Musical Society in 1832, and the world-famous Huddersfield Choral Society in 1836. Handel's Messiah has been performed during Advent every year since the Choral Society was founded. Still very popular, these concerts were for many years conducted by Flash Harry, Sir Malcolm Sargent. Other conductors have come and gone, but he's still remembered with affection. The Choral Society is still one of the largest and best known, but the Methodist Choir and U3A Choir and a wide range of other choirs, male or female voices, meet regularly and perform in public on many occasions. Other aspects of music have not been ignored, with amateur operatic societies, a number of brass bands, and more specialized music societies. Originally, brass bands were sponsored by the local mill owner, such as Meltham Mills Brass Band, sponsored by the Brooke family. Literature and poetry are also popular, with the busy library in the town centre at the hub of the town's life. Huddersfield is reputed to be the poetry capital of the North. The Albert Poets meet regularly in the pub next door to the library. A regular poetry festival is organised by the Word Horde in spring and autumn. At one time there were several theatres and cinemas in the town centre: the Theatre Royal, the Hippodrome, the Palace Theatre, cinemas such as the Princess, Picture Palace, Ritz and the Curzon, to name but a few. Over the years, all have closed down, as sites were redeveloped or reopened as bingo halls and, more recently, nightclubs. The Hippodrome is of interest as it was built, as the name reflects, as an armoury and a place for the local militia to train with their horses. This later became a theatre and then a cinema under several names. Fire destroyed the roof during a snowstorm in 1967, and it was rebuilt at a lower height. Its most recent incarnation, as the Rat and Parrot, has revealed again the carvings of the rampant horses that graced the original armoury, built in 1847. The loss of Huddersfield's last professional theatre, the Theatre Royal, in 1961, left the town with a shortage of places for the many amateur groups to perform. The Huddersfield Arts Centre helped fill the gap in various venues, but it was the conversion of the Queen Street Methodist Mission into the Lawrence Batley Theatre that brought the regular professional theatre back into the town. Many local groups such as the Huddersfield Thespians, the Gilbert and Sullivan Society and Amateur Operatic Society make use of the two stages of the Lawrence Batley Theatre. Huddersfield is the home of Rugby League, formed at the George Hotel in 1895. Many players in rugby union could not afford to take time off from work without pay. They wanted to be paid for broken time. Wealthier players did not feel this to be appropriate, as it would make for a professional sport. So the Breakaway Rugby League was developed. Today, the two sides of rugby are coming closer together again. Huddersfield Town AFC have been based on Leeds Road for many years. They won the FA Cup in the 1921-22 season when they beat Preston 1-0. Reached third place in 1922-23. The legendary Bill Shankly managed the club in the 1950s, signing on a skinny 16-year-old from Aberdeen, Dennis Law. The new McAlpine Stadium replaced the Leeds Road ground in 1995. Other local leagues mean that large numbers of young men and women spend Saturday or Sundays on the football fields of the town. Cricket was played at Fartown, with county matches bringing in large crowds. Well-known names such as Len Hutton, Jeff Boycott, and local prodigies Wilfred Rhodes and Percy Holmes played at Fartown. However, the cost of improvements to the site resulted in the Yorkshire County Cricket's connections with Huddersfield ending in 1982, and the Fartown ground eventually being closed. Some nationally known athletes have come from Huddersfield, including Anita Longsborough, the Olympic gold medal winner in 1960, athlete Derek Ibbotson, world record holder for the mile in 1957, and the rally driver Anne Hall, amongst others. Anne is still teaching learner drivers to pass their test. Lawrence Batley, Roy Castle, Lord Hanson, James Mason and Harold Wilson have all gone on from their early roots in the Huddersfield area to fame and fortune in the wider world. Harold Wilson is celebrated with a statue placed in front of the station in 1999. The people of Huddersfield served their country well during both world wars. Many men fought in all fields of conflict, whilst others worked in the mills, engineering and chemical works to provide the equipment needed to win the wars. In the First World War, explosives were manufactured by British dyestuffs at Deaton. In the Second World War, Hopkinson's valves at Birkby played an important part in the manufacture of the mini-submarines that we used to explore the French and Norwegian coastlines before invasion. There were not many air raids over Huddersfield, although the threat was always there as the bombers returned from Manchester and Liverpool. The first bombs dropped in the town blew several residents out of bed at Hall Bower and ruined Mrs. O'Shea's jam tarts. One of the worst tragedies of the war was Booth's Fire, where 47 people lost their lives in a clothing factory blaze on the 31st of October 1941. Because people couldn't get away for a holiday, the local council were amongst the pioneers of the Holidays at Home festivities. These summer activities took place in local parks and were the forerunner of the annual summer festival held in Kirklees today. Huddersfield is well placed to go forward into the 21st century. Although many of the old industries do not have such a marked impact on the town's economy, there are many others that have taken their place. The Media Centre on Northumberland Street encourages companies to make use of the new technology. Firms such as C&A Antioch and Mamas and Papas have grown. Zenica and other chemical and engineering firms are still at the forefront of research and development in their own specialised fields. Students from all over the world come to study in Huddersfield. Some remain, others go back to encourage and develop their own nation. New industries, new shopping centres, and an attractive place to live close to open, even wild countryside, coupled with easy access to world markets and the large conurbations of Leeds, Bradford and Manchester, mean that Huddersfield will go forward to a successful future.